Hi, third graders. Today we are going to be reading chapters 19 and 20 of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I almost called it the wrong book just now. Where we left off, they were outside this red door. We didn't know what it was. They had just come up on the candy boat. And we're going to find out more about this room. Chapter 19, The Inventing Room, Everlasting Gobstoppers, and Hair Toffee. As you can see, my cat would like to join us today, so I hope he's here. When Mr. Wonka shouted, "Stop the boat!" the Oompa Loompas jammed their oars into the river and backed water furiously. The boat stopped. The Oompa Loompas guided the boat alongside the red door. On the door, it said, "Inventing Room, Private, Keep Out." Mr. Wonka took a key from his pocket, leaned over the side of the boat, and put the key in the keyhole. "This is the most important room in the entire factory," he said. "All my most secret new inventions are cooking and simmering in here. Old Fickelgruber would give his front teeth just to be allowed inside here for 3 minutes. So would Prodnose and Slugworth and all the other rotten chocolate makers. But now, listen to me. I want no messing about when you go in there. No touching, no meddling, and no tasting. Is that agreed?" "Yes, yes," the children cried. "We won't touch a thing." Now I know me, and I'm an adult. When I go somewhere, I like to touch things. And Mrs. Sibbald knows this as well, because one time I saw a button on a printer, and I just had to push it, and I broke the printer. So, I would have probably a hard time not touching something. And I'll think, we've got these 4 kids now, because Augustus Gloop is not with them right now. He was sucked in through the chocolate thing into the fudge room. We have these 4 kids. And what we know about them, Charlie's a very, very sweet, kind, loving boy, but the other 3 aren't the greatest. So I'm making the prediction that I think something crazy is going to happen. "Up to now," Mr. Wonka said, "nobody else, not even an Oompa Loompa, has ever been allowed in here." He opened the door and stepped out into the boat, into the room. The 4 children and their parents all scrambled after him. "Don't touch!" shouted Mr. Wonka. "And don't knock anything over." Charlie Bucket stared around the gigantic room in which he had now found himself. The place was like a witch's kitchen. All about him, black metal pots were boiling and bubbling on huge stoves, and kettles were hissing, and pans were sizzling, and strange iron machines were clanking and spluttering, and there were pipes running all over the ceiling and walls. The whole place was filled with smoke and steam and delicious rich smells. Mr. Wonka himself had suddenly become even more excited than usual, and anyone could see that this was the room he loved best of all. He was hopping about among the saucepans and machines like a child among Christmas presents, not knowing which thing to look at first. He lifted the lid from a huge pot and took a sniff. Then he rushed over and dipped a finger in a barrel of sticky yellow stuff and had a taste. Then he skipped across to one of the machines and turned half a dozen knobs this way and that. Then he peered anxiously through the glass door of a gigantic oven, rubbing his hands and cracking with delight at what he saw inside. When he ran over to another machine, a small shiny affair that kept going put, 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 and every time it went put, a large green marble dropped out of it into a basket on the floor. At least it looked like a marble. "Everlasting Gobstoppers!" cried Mr. Wonka proudly. So there is Mr. Wonka going through all these pots. And you can see some of the people looking on. And Gobstoppers are a real candy. They're just not to the extent that's going to be described in this book. If you've had a Gobstopper, they're usually like the little ball. Sometimes you see like a Jawbreaker's the bigger version. And as you eat it, it usually changes colors or something along that line. "They're completely new. I'm inventing them for children who are given very little pocket money. You can put an everlasting gobstopper in your mouth, and you can suck it and 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 suck it, and it'll never get any smaller. It's like gum, cried Violet Beauregarde. It is not like gum, Mr. Wonka said. Gum is for chewing, and if you tried to chew one of these gobstoppers here, you would break your teeth off. But they taste terrific, and they never disappear. Never! At least, I don't think they do. There's one of them being tested this very moment in the testing room next door. And Oompa Loompa is sucking it. He's been sucking for nearly a year now without stopping, and it's still just as good as ever. Now, over here, Mr. Wonka went on, skipping excitedly across the room to the opposite wall, over here I am inventing a completely new line of toffees. He stopped beside a large saucepan. The saucepan was full of thick, gooey, purplish candy, boiling and bubbling, but standing on his toes, little Charlie could just see inside of it. That's hair toffee, cried Mr. Wonka. You eat just one tiny bit of it, and exactly half an hour, a brand new, luscious, thick, silky, beautiful crop of hair will start growing, all over the top of your head, and a mustache, and a beard. A beard, cried Violet Beauregarde. Who wants a beard, for heaven's sake? It would suit you very well, said Mr. Wonka, but unfortunately, the mixture's not quite right yet. I've got it too strong. It works too well. I tried it on an Oompa Loompa yesterday in the testing room, and immediately a huge beard started shooting out of his chin, and the beard grew so fast that soon it was trailing all over the floor in a thick, hairy carpet. It was growing faster than we could cut it. In the end, we had to use a lawnmower to keep it in check. But I'll get the mixture right soon, and when I do, then there'll be no excuse and any more for little boys and girls There'll be no excuse for little girls and boys to have bald heads. But Mr. Wonka, said Mike Teavee, little boys and girls never do go about with, don't argue, my dear child, please don't argue, cried Mr. Wonka. It's such a waste of precious time. Now, over here, if you will all step this way, I will show you something that I'm terrifically proud of. Oh, do be careful. Don't knock anything over. Stand back. So we find out the first two inventions that we learn about, because I can't remember exactly correctly, I believe this is a question in your comprehension packet. The first one is everlasting gobstoppers, and you can suck and suck and suck on this like marble size ball forever and it'll never disappear. And the other thing is hair toffee. And you take a little bit of it, and all of a sudden you have hair shooting out within a half hour, beard, and mustache. I don't know if I'd want to eat that candy. Probably not, but some people might. Chapter 20, The Great Gum Machine. Gum. Who do we know that loves gum? Mr. Wonka led the party over to a gigantic machine that stood in the very center of the inventing room. It was a mountain of gleaming metal that towered high above the children and their parents. Out of the very top of it there sprouted hundreds and hundreds of thin glass tubes, and glass tubes all curled downwards and came together in a bunch and hung suspended over an enormous round tub as big as a bath. So all these glass tubes are hanging over this big tub-sized bowl almost. Here we go, cried Mr. Wonka as he pressed 3 different buttons on the side of the machine. A second later, a mighty rumbling sound came from inside it, and the whole machine began to shake most frighteningly, and steam began hissing out of all over, and then suddenly the watchers noticed that runny stuff was pouring down the inside of the hundreds of little glass tubes and squirting out into the great tub below. And in every single tube, the runny stuff was a different color, so that all the colors of the rainbow, and many others as well, came sloshing and splashing into the tub. It was a lovely sight, and when the tub was nearly full, Mr. Wonka pressed another button, and immediately the runny stuff stopped running out of the tubes, and the rumbling sound disappeared, and a whizzing, whirling noise took its place. And then a gigantic whizzer started whizzing around the enormous tub, mixing up all the different colored liquids like an ice cream soda. Gradually, the mixture began to froth, so it began to get lots of bubbles on it. It became frothier and frothier, and it turned from blue to white to green to brown to yellow, and then back to blue again. Watch, said Mr. Wonka. Click went the machine, and the whizzer stopped whizzing, and now there came a sort of sucking noise, and very quickly all the blue frothy mixture in the machine basin was sucked back into the stomach of the machine. There was a moment of silence. Then a few rumblings were heard. Then silence again. Then suddenly the machine let out a monstrous mighty groan, and all at the same moment a tiny drawer, no bigger than a drawer in a slot machine, so very, very tiny, popped out of the side of the machine, and in the drawer there lay something so small and thin and gray that everyone thought it must be a mistake. The thing looked like a little strip of gray cardboard. The children and their parents stared at the little gray strip lying in the drawer. "You mean that's all?" said Mike Teavee, disgusted. "That's all," answered Mr. Wonka, gazing proudly at the result. "Don't you know what it is?" There was a pause. So there they are. There's a machine. There's a tiny, tiny drawer. So it had all this mixture. You can see how much mixture, and it's bubbling, and all of this liquid coming in. And it comes out to one little thing in that drawer. There was a pause. Then suddenly, Violet Beauregard, the goofy gum-chewing girl, let out a yell of excitement. "By gum, it's gum!" she shrieked. "It's a stick of chewing gum!" "Right you are!" cried Mr. Wonka, slapping Violet hard on the back. "It's a stick of gum. It's a stick of the most amazing and fabulous and sensational gum in the world." And we're going to find more about the gum in the next chapter, but we're not going to read that today. I'm going to give you a little preview of what's coming up. Chapter 21 is called Goodbye, Violet. So we found out the 3 inventions now. So we had the everlasting gobstopper, we had the hair toffee, and then the last one is this special gum. We don't exactly know what's going on with this gum yet, but we're going to find out what's so special about this gum in the next chapter. And it is a pretty special gum. I would like to try this gum if it was ever truly invented. Who knows? Today you'll need to do the comprehension questions as well for these chapters. So you can watch the other video where I read those questions. If you have any questions, I'm going to say that word one more time, just let me know. Call in to hang out, email, message, get a hold of me some way, and I can help you out. I hope you're all doing great. I miss you all so much. And I'm excited for next school year already, where we'll be all back together again. Bye.